Bobby Jackson, the individual that just got through attacking me the night before, because you don't attack somebody that just got through having a major blood transfusion that still got 64 staples up and down their belly.
Yeah, he's the one that needed to go to Bolivar. It's like, what's wrong with you? You know, man.
Not only did he need to go to Bolivar, but at that particular point in time, I guess the whole daggum bunch needed to go to Bolivar.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
The mayor, too, of Kenton, Tennessee, to sit there and listen to the facts of what all went on.
Yeah.
And then to say, well, you're the bad guy in all this, and you're the one that needs to go get help.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah.
It was almost like patting my father on the back and saying, good job, Bob. Good job. What a good job you done.
Man.
Why didn't you finish him off last night whenever you tried to attack him? You know, we got my mother that was there at the house. His brother was the one that pulled me off. Dad didn't deny none of that. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I attacked him. Well, he threatened my life. Oh, I threatened your life? Was it an actual threat? Or did I threaten my own life just as much as I threatened yours? Now, it would have been different, Joanne, if I had a gun, or if I'd have had a knife, or if I'd have had a club. If it would have been an intimate threat of some sort towards him having to respond that way, it would have been different. But I didn't have none of those things. Yeah. I didn't have a knife. I didn't have a gun. I didn't have a club. I was just standing there talking as a sick patient. A patient that his life had almost been taken. Mm-hmm. And now I'm standing there quivering because this guy has ripped the phone off the wall, not knowing what's going to be the next move. And his next move was he physically attacked me. Mm-hmm. So now I go to get help. SOS, SOS, help, help, help. Go to the proper authorities there in Kenton, Tennessee. And the type of help that I got was being institutionalized. Mm-hmm. You know what that done to me at that particular point in time? Yeah. That branded me.
Yeah.
That branded me in the eyes of society to the point that now this person has a history of being associated with the psychiatric community. Mm-hmm. And the whole time, Joanne, who should have really been the one that should have been associated with the psychiatric community?
It's, I would say Bobby Jackson.
Cards down. 100.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, Bobby Jackson.
Not just on that particular situation, but on all the brutality that he committed.
It sounds like the whole thing was. It sounds like the whole thing was influenced by an evil force.
Yes.
Which was brought on by Bobby Jackson.
But
it was influenced, not the rest of them.
Yeah.
Like, well, we're going to side with Bobby Jackson here. And they didn't even like Bobby Jackson anyway, Some of them didn't.
Believe it or not, he did have an influence.
Yeah, he did have an influence.
He did have an influence with the cops and stuff around in that area because he was considered a World War II hero.
Yeah.
Because he served in World War II.
Yeah.
Well, just because you're a good soldier in the war doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good parent.
Yeah, I know.
He was an awful parent.
Yeah.
He treated his whole family awful. He abused not only his children, but he abused his wife too as well.
Yeah.
Not only abused us verbally, but abused us physically.
Yeah.
Physical abuse.
Yeah. I believe Uncle Bob had, just from being in the war there, some people would come back and they would have anger issues.
Post-traumatic.
And Uncle Bob would take it out on his
family.
On his family.
But now at that time in the 80s, they didn't even know what post-traumatic stress syndrome was in the military communities because it hadn't been diagnosed as such as that yet.
Right. Yeah.
You know what they called it back then? Shell shock.
Oh, shell shock. Yeah.
Shell shock.
I've heard that one. Yeah.
To where you could be sitting there at the kitchen table with somebody.
As a matter of fact, they would document it if that person died of a heart attack or something.
Yeah.
They would document it as death was caused from shell shock from the war.
That's right.
When on all actuality, it was something in their blood cells that caused like a blood clot or something. Buddy King's dad was, they documented him as a shell shock death.
That is.
He had a blood clot that went straight to his heart. Now, he was shell shocked. You know, nightmares, dreams, and because he went through a little bit.
Go through sweating emotions, laying in the bed at night.
That was after he came
having
home.
bad
you know,
dreams,
to,
bad nightmares.
Yeah, they have to adjust.
I've heard of people sitting there while they was drinking coffee, and all of a sudden a car go by and the car backfire, and all of a sudden that person jump and get down on his knees. Get down, get down, get down! They're gonna kill us! They're gonna kill us! They're gonna kill us!
Yeah.
And get all emotional like that because they was literally shell shocked.
Yeah. From what Buddy's mom said, that they would have sometimes like, and this was right after he came home from the war, you know.
Yeah.
That he would wake her up in the middle of the night. One time he literally picked her up from the bed and threw her. She's like, whoa, you know. But he was having a dream, having a shell shock dream, you know.
Yeah.
So they had and then after he died, and they said he was coming home after work. You know, he had got a job, trying to readjust to society. He had a blood clot that hit his heart and it exploded his heart. By the time she got to the hospital, he was gone. But they considered it a shell shock death.
The point that I'm trying to make is this.
I'm like, wow.
The point that I'm trying to make is this. If Damian Cross, the mayor of Kenton, Tennessee, would have been on his game the way that he should have been that night, he should have been able to have looked through the smoke screen and realized it wasn't Dennis Jackson that needed to go get psychoanalyzed that night. It was his father that attempted to murder Dennis Jackson. And if anything that Dennis Jackson needed to do that night was maybe go back to the hospital over in Martin, Tennessee, to see if his blood pressure was too high, too low, rather not I had too much sugar, not enough sugar. You know, I should have been handled medically and not psychologically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I had never, ever, up until that time, been involved with the psychiatric community. And the whole time, my mother and I and my brothers, we used to sit around contemplating before Douglas Keith got killed in 1976 towards who was going to be the trigger man to actually walk off into the bedroom while my father was sleeping and take a double-barrel shotgun and literally dismember his head from his shoulders, because we literally hated the type of abuse that we was receiving from him.
Yeah.
It was that bad, Joanne. It was that bad.
Oh, wow.
We was living in horror over there with that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And Uncle Bill and Aunt Betty, they knew that it was going on. Mama Lucy knew it was going on. And half of the neighborhood at the time, the people that we was living around within a 2 to 5 mile circulus area, know that it was going on.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody was willing to stand up about it. Nobody was willing to red flag old Bob. You know why? Because old Bob was a World War II hero.
Mm-hmm.
He come back as a Purple Heart candidate from the war, and we're not gonna bash a military hero.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, back then, whipping your children or beating your children was acceptable as long as you kept air in their lungs, as long as you didn't actually dismember them or kill them.
Yeah. Wow.
So
yeah,
the abuse that the whole family had to go through, and this was the very thing that drove my older brother off into a state of alcoholism, Danny, is because he couldn't handle that type of abuse.
Yeah.
It was too emotional and too psychologically disrupting in his life, to the point that the only way that he could ignore it or get it out of his mind was to drink it out.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, one beer led to another beer, one six-pack led to another six-pack, one case led to another six-pack, to the point that he wound up dying at the age of 56.
Yeah, wow. Yep.
He died at the age of 56, and guess what? James Robert Jackson, my dad, old Bob, had to sit there and watch his firstborn, his oldest son, die a slow, antagonizing, miserable, horrible death. A death that could have been prevented if he would have treated his family in a more respectful, dignified way without all that damn brutality.
Yeah. Wow.
Not only that, but I think it also had a great deal to do with his wife dying at the age of 62.
Yeah.
Betty, my mother.
Uh-huh. Yeah, she was
And I
pretty young.
really believe and will always believe that God went ahead for some strange reason and allowed Douglas Keith to be taken out, or the devil attacked Douglas Keith, because Douglas Keith, that died at the age of 19 in 1976, I truly believe was going to be the trigger man, was actually going to be the one to walk off into the bedroom while Mother was no longer around and take that double-barrel shotgun and literally dismember his head from his shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Aunt Betty Joyce, I remember calling them. Somebody left a message or something. I wasn't home with one of the kids. So I called because Aunt Betty Joyce had passed, and when I called, she had just passed. I think I called before that, and my dad was staying in her room, because they didn't think she was going, you know.
Yeah.
And I talked to David, you know, for a long time. And then they got my dad. You know, my dad was your mom had just passed away.
See,
So
whenever
my dad was the last one. He said he literally watched her take her last breath.
Yeah.
He was the one in her room when she
I guess, died over there.
Because they would all babysit, I guess. Apparently,
She died
take
over there,
turns. And it was
Rutherford,
my
yeah.
dad's turn. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and David, of course, you know, he said that David was taking it hard. He did take his mom's death at that particular time. Because it was stressful,
Right.
you know. But yeah, David used to hang out with his mom.
Oh yeah.
He would be his mom's guardian.
He
you
was,
know?
well, David
was
was
his mom's-
David was the last one. David was the baby of the bunch.
Yeah, he'd follow
You
his
know?
mom everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
He'd go following his mom everywhere.
Oh yeah.
See Mama, he'd come over. You know, where's Mama? I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, I think she took off with my mom. You
Right.
know?
Right.
She'll be back.
Right.
Yeah.
But what turned the tide pertaining to so much bitterness and hatefulness towards the family against Bob was I was about maybe 10 years old at the time, and Danny and Douglas had gotten in some trouble a year or two before, or 6 months before that, and they was on some sort of probation. Well, they was just about at the brink of ending their probation, and Dad gave them a little leadway, and Danny and Douglas was on a date, and the old car that they was driving that night wound up breaking down to the point that it wouldn't crank, and they had to walk, run, hitchhike, beg, borrow, and steal just to get from Greenfield back home, and they wound up getting home about an hour after their curfew.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know what Dad done?
Oh no.
He goes out back and grabs up a black round extension cord about the size of your little finger,
Ouch, yeah.
and literally laid into Danny and Douglas, both of them, with that black round extension cord like beating a damn horse.
Oh my God.
And beat them and beat them and beat them and beat them. I was in the back bedroom at the time sleeping. I jumped up and because I heard all that commotion going on up there in the living room, and I jumped up as a little kid and I opened up the door just enough to squint and see what the hell was going on. Joanne, there was so much screaming and blood and crying going on. I literally urinated all over myself. I pissed on myself, turned around and run back to the bedroom, begging and screaming and hollering to myself, my God, I hope he don't come in here and do the same thing to me.
Yeah.
Frightened to death.
Yeah.
Did you know both of those boys had to stay inside the house for a week because Dad was afraid if they got out into the eyes of the public, somebody would have turned his ass in? They literally had whips, not only on their back, not only on their arms, not only on their legs, but some of the whips was on their neck. Some of the whip marks was on their faces.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Open lacerations.
Man.
Whips.
Man.
That's whenever Douglas, Keith, and Danny said, this son of a you-know-what's fixing to die. And the whole family agreed, he needs to die.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And the only thing that was holding us up was a green light from Betty, our mother, Because if she would have gave us a green light, I truly believe it would have been Douglas Keith that have went in there and really assassinated him.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But the only thing was, I think she knew that if that occurred towards us being exonerated from killing him in his sleep, the type of people that we was living around, we would have probably all wound up going to jail.
Yeah.
Because of the type
They'd
of
be
people that we
for
was
him.
living around at the time.
Yeah.
In other words, that was their hero, Joanne.
Yeah.
We can't do nothing to our hero. He's a World War II hero.
He was a veteran, so you would have to be, oh, yeah, you guys would be in trouble.
That's the way they
Yeah.
treated
Yeah.
our family in that area, Joanne.
Yeah, yeah, he was a veteran, and they would be on his side. Trust me, veteran. I know.
That's what we had to deal with growing up.
What about, yeah, there's lots of abuse and stuff, you know.
Abuse
Yeah,
that literally drove my older brother off into an early death
yeah,
because of his sickness.
yeah, I believe his breaking had a lot to do with his, you know, just trying, it was his way of being for us.
Well, listen, I'm gonna start getting ready. All right,
Okay, yeah,
so we can go up there and talk to that guy.
yeah. We gotta leave in about 20 minutes.
About 20, 30 minutes, we got to go.
Yeah.
All right.